Hey guys, how's it going? Now, a little while ago, I posted an article on our blog, just basically with some background about my story. And it turns out a few players have read that and they've sent a message saying, thanks so much for sharing that. Some things I could really relate to there. And it's given me some motivation and hope that I can still go on and do good things, even though they're struggling at the moment. So on the back of that, I thought I'd do a short video sharing pretty much the main points of my journey so far. So hopefully they can help you. So in the interest of this not being about 4 hours long, I'll just stick to the main points. If you do want to see or read the much longer version, then I'll add the link below so you can see the full thing. But yeah, so it basically started with, start off with, I'm from an area called Buckinghamshire in England, and my local professional club is Wycombe Wanderers. So like most players, I started playing for a local team. I think about the age of 5, I think it was. And I still remember now, my dad dragged me to that first football training session because I was really shy as a child. And yeah, he literally dragged me kicking and screaming. So that first session, as soon as I got there, obviously I was absolutely fine. But yeah, obviously glad that he dragged me there now. But yeah, so started playing for a local team, and then when I was 8 years old, we had a tournament at Wycombe Wanderers Stadium, only like a little six-a-side thing, and obviously there were lots of Wycombe coaches there watching out for players, and I had a bit of luck on my side that day. So actually about 2 or 3 matches in, I went up for a header and someone decided to go up with their boot instead of their head, and their stud went straight through my lip there, and I had a big hole in my lip. So I ended up having to go to hospital and missed the rest of the tournament. But as luck would have it, one of my teammates got scouted, and one of the other coaches, or it might have been a parent, basically said, oh, you need to give this other lad a chance as well at the trial, and that turned out to be, that was me. So that was good news. So ended up attending this trial to get into the Wycombe Centre of Excellence, as it was at the time. So that was like a 10-week trial, and there must have been about 80 players there. And again, to cut a long story short, it was me and one other player that was selected to go on and join the proper Wycombe Wanderers team for our age group. And we trained at Bisham Abbey, and it actually turned out that the other player never turned up, so it was just me. So I turned up to that first training session at Bisham Abbey. I didn't know anyone, and had to just slot straight in there. So you might be familiar with that sort of experience where you don't know anyone, you have to just, slot in and do your best straight away. So anyway, things at Wycombe were going really well. Ended up being captain of my team most of the time, never missed a match, and playing up a year a lot of the time as well. And by the time I was about 16, I sort of really thought I had a decent chance of getting through to the first team. Things were going really well. I'd had a couple of sort of offers from other professional clubs as well, and decided to stay at Wycombe, obviously because it was convenient, it was local, and I was playing well there too. There was no need to leave. So I decided to stay, and that all really changed all of a sudden when we got a new coach, and completely different style of coaching. He was an ex-player, and just completely obliterated my confidence, really. Not just me, actually, a lot of other players in the team as well. And it got to the point where even like a 5-yard pass, I couldn't even do that without being scared that it wasn't going to make it there. And this is one point actually that I made that a lot of players said they can relate to. Just like overnight, your ability seems to just disappear. If you're familiar with that feeling of if you're at work or whatever you're doing, you've got someone looking over your shoulder, watching everything you're doing, and they're going to sort of explode if you do it wrong. That's what it was like every time one of us played a pass. I'm probably exaggerating that a little bit, but it was very unrelaxing, and it just put everyone off. And my performance level really went through the floor. Struggled a lot with my mindset, because to go from like one of the best players there, and all of a sudden like really struggling to perform to anywhere near the same level and not knowing what to do to get back to that level was really tough. So anyway, that coach went on to get fired, but by then I think he'd done irreversible damage, really. And it got to the point where, from being in a position where I thought I'm dead cert to get a youth pro contract here, when I was 18, they offered me like a non-contract deal. So basically, I was already at a good school, and they said, finish off your studying and come in and train and play when you can, which I thought, to be honest, meant we don't really want you, which was fine. So I was gutted, obviously, but after 9 years at Wickham, being in and around that professional environment, I trained with the first team on an occasion as well, and was always in amongst the first team players at the training facility. Ended up, leaving and playing semi-pro whilst finishing my studies. And then, as luck would have it, when I was playing in a cup final match, an England schoolboys coach was watching and approached me afterwards and offered me to attend the trial for England schoolboys for that for the next season. So that was great, because I thought this is a good pathway back into professional football. And that was still my dream, to be a pro footballer. I had no intention of being a coach or anything else, or having a normal job. I just wanted to be a footballer. So anyway, that England trials process was extremely drawn out. It felt like it was about a year long, to be honest. Started with a week's training camp, I think in 2008 that was, and then many series of other trials as they broke down the numbers. And I ended up getting down to the final 30 players, and we trained at Lilleshall. So the final 30 players in the country, and the standard was great. We had brilliant coaches who were, some of them were coaching at Premier League clubs at the time. And the other players there were also in a position like me, I guess. They had been released from professional clubs, and they were trying to make it back. So we had players from like Everton. I can't remember what other Premier League clubs players there were, but the standard was great. And there's actually 2 players who went on to play in the Premier League from that squad. But anyway, as it got whittled further and further down, this is another thing which a lot of you might be able to relate to this, going from like being on top of the world to like the worst feeling ever. Was when I was waiting for my letter to see if I'd made it into the final squad of 21 players. So I got down to the final weekend of 23 players, and I played well. So anyway, there was a problem with the post. My letter didn't arrive on time, but other players' letters had. And I actually got a message on Facebook posted onto my wall by another player, basically saying, "Congratulations, mate, absolutely buzzing to be in the squad with you." So by that, I thought, I've made it in. I was running around the house celebrating, and then about half an hour later, I realised that post got deleted off Facebook, and my stomach like sunk, and I thought, that's not good. I kept refreshing the page. It wasn't coming back. So I thought, what's going on here? And cut a long story short, ended up find out that I actually hadn't made the final squad of 21 players. I'd literally narrowly missed out. So I was absolutely gutted, from thinking I've made it into the England schoolboys squad. And, there's loads of Premier League clubs watching those games, scouts watching those games to make it back in. Proven by the fact that 2 players went on to play in the Premier League. But yeah, gutted not to get back in. So anyway, didn't give up hope. And sorry, I should mention, whilst that trial process was going on, I had a ridiculous injury. It was a medial ligament injury in my knee that I was struggling with. So I was going through that process of rushing back an injury, just getting ready so I could be okay to attend the trials. And again, if you read my story, you see how I came across got that injury. It was a stupid thing I did. So that really affected my fitness levels in the trials process as well. Not using that as an excuse, but just something to learn from there. But yeah, so after that process, I still hadn't given up, still wanted to be a pro. And then whilst playing for my semi-pro club, a bit of a freak tackle, ended up with a player landing sort of on the inside of my leg, jarred my hip, and I felt a tear in there, and it felt really deep and not a usual feeling that I was used to from an injury. So I kept playing on and thinking it was just a groin strain. Physio had a look, said, yeah, I think it's a groin strain. And then this horrible cycle started of week after week after week, being talked into playing when I knew I was still injured, because basically the swelling would go down. As soon as I started to try and train or play again, it would come back and I really struggled to move. And not only that, in the England trials, my performance levels I got back to my old self, was playing well again. But then I was struggling with this hip injury, being forced to play on it. And the pain was horrible. It was like a grinding pain, and really started to get frustrated and not enjoying playing at all, to the point where I just couldn't move. And obviously got it checked out, had an MRI scan. And again, cut a long story short, doctor told me I could never play football again. It was a labral tear and it couldn't be repaired. And with football is just not the sport you want to try and be playing if you've got a labral tear. So out of thinking it could be resolved, and still at a young age and serious about making it back into pro football, having already had sort of 9 years in that environment, I knew I could step back in if I was given an opportunity. To just have that completely taken away was obviously devastating. And that's like your whole identity as well, is like you're the footballer, and then all of a sudden you can't play football anymore. The doctor even said, you can't be doing any sport, no coaching, because this is going to get worse. If you do, you end up in a wheelchair in 5 years' time. And so you might be able to relate to that as well if you've gone through some sort of injury and you thought there's no way back. Anyway, I was absolutely determined that I wasn't going to end up doing some sort of office job. I was going to stay playing football. And I searched everywhere for a second opinion. I couldn't really find one from anyone. And I was going to go and do a gap year and go and do like a football camp abroad. But with this injury, could barely move. So I decided to go to uni and do sports science, and basically tailored everything where I could, all the assignments that we had around my injury, to find out a bit more about it and try and start my own rehab process. So went to uni, had a great time, learnt a lot, but I was playing for the uni team when I could. I still had this injury, I was still determined to play, even though the doctor said I shouldn't be playing at all. And I was still struggling with it, couldn't really move properly. But when I joined the uni, I got onto a scholarship to have my own strength and conditioning coach, because of my previous time at Wycombe Wanderers and with the England trials thing, because I had potential to go back and become a professional footballer. So I got assigned my own strength and conditioning coach. I sort of played down the injury, so that I could follow through with that opportunity, and started training with them. And I noticed unbelievable progress that I hadn't experienced before with this injury. And I got a lot stronger, a lot more robust, a lot more powerful. And that really sparked sort of my love for strength and conditioning, really, and my interest in this, thinking, God, if only I'd known all this stuff years ago, where I could be now. And thinking as well, all the stuff that players are missing out on by not knowing this stuff still now. I was doing sports science, and I had my own strength and conditioning coach, and I was starting to notice some improvements. But by the time uni had finished, my hip still wasn't at a point where I could really play again. I felt okay-ish, but it still bothered me when I tried to even jog. My hip would swell up again. And so after uni, I continued with my own rehab program, and this is where the start of the Matchfit programs sort of came out. It wasn't under the name Matchfit. These were things I designed and that I was following myself. Okay, and then obviously I having found strength and conditioning really interesting, I started studying football-specific strength and conditioning and applying what I was learning to this training program. And again, to cut a long story short, I was following this program, noticing good improvements. I went to Australia to go traveling, to get away from England, get a different environment. And again, as luck would have it, a Wycombe Wanderers coach that used to coach me was living in Brisbane in Australia, and I connected with him again. He offered me a trial in the NPL over in Australia. And this is when I was playing for a local team in Australia whilst doing my farm work to get another visa, just to see if my hip could manage to play in a match again. And gradually it started to unlock, and I could complete a full match again for the first time in 3 or 4 years. That was a great feeling. Just to be able to play again was amazing. So yeah, got this trial at the NPL club in Brisbane, and ended up getting signed, which was again dream come true because there was a point where I thought I would never ever be able to play football again, and now I'm back playing multiple times a week at a decent level and getting paid for it as well. And alongside that, I could start coaching, and I was still learning about fitness and football strength and conditioning as well. So whilst I was doing that, I started doing one-to-one coaching with players, showing them what I had learned, and started getting some great results for them. But also at the same time, with that NPL club, had some great opportunities. That again was a dream come true. They're not anything like playing against Barcelona or Real Madrid, but to go from having no club for 3 years, not knowing anyone in football anymore, and not being told I can never play again, to going back to this environment and playing against a club called Brisbane Roar, who are an A-League club who you might be familiar with, just being on that pitch, being captain of the team, and shaking hands of the Brisbane Roar captain. That was like an amazing sort of moment in that journey of 4 years, from England schoolboys trials, career-ending injury, knowing absolutely no one in football again, having no help, doing my own rehab program, all the way back to this. It was just amazing. And then, so played in Australia for a couple of years. Cut a long story short, again, I decided I was sort of 25, 26, I wanted to go all in on Matchfit, because that brought me loads of enjoyment. I was really passionate about sharing what I'd learned with other players to help them not only play better, reach their full potential, but also not have the setbacks that I did, which a lot of the time were very avoidable. So decided with that I wanted to move back to England. Thought there were more opportunities with the business back in England, and then was coaching players one-to-one. That was going great, but because it was just me, there was only so many hours in the day I could do, and I started to share what I was teaching online, started to build a following, and it made more sense to design, sort of transform that program I had followed into a program which could be applied to other players, and at the same time add in more and more knowledge into it that I didn't have access to when I first started designing it, which made the program even better and even more effective, which is the Matchfit programs now. And I'm still learning new stuff and still applying it, so it's sort of an ever-improving program. But alongside that, hiring some more coaches who are experts in each area, for example, psychology and nutrition, to support me in delivering this and helping players at a bigger scale. And that's at the stage we're at now, really. And so we've got a team of coaches and who work with a lot of the players that we're obviously coaching at a deep level. And it's really like a unbelievable journey from being told I could never be involved in sport again to find some completely separate career, to go, if you just being determined that wasn't going to be the case, going back to playing again, getting into coaching, and then getting into strength and conditioning, and then being in the position I'm in now is just awesome. So that's really my mission. Is I never wanted to be a coach. The whole reason I got into football strength and conditioning was, for me, really for selfish reasons, because I wanted to get myself back to playing. And then I fell in love with it, and realised that other players need to learn from this, and other players were getting good results from what I was showing them. So to do it at a bigger scale. So hopefully that's given you some inspiration and motivation if you're struggling with injuries right now or anything else like that, or you've been released from a club. Football is a lot about opinions, and if you can work on yourself and work on your mindset, that's going to take you a long way. Because if you just stop when someone tells you you're not going to make it, just listen to what you believe you can do inside of you, and it's going to lead to something good. I believed I could still play at professional level, but realistically, I'd spent 4 years out, but I still had a go at it. I put everything into it, and that's led me to something else, which is arguably just as good, if not even better. So if you just trust what you think something inside you is guiding you, the direction you want to go, then then, you know, I believe that'll lead to some brilliant opportunity and you'll come good in the end. So that's, again, the very brief version of the journey that I went through. Many more ups and downs. If you want to read about those, check out the link below that I've added, and there's the full story there. But yeah, just a story that shows, hopefully I can relate to a lot of the issues you might be having. I have a lot of empathy for different obstacles players come up against, because I've pretty much been through them all myself, and as I say, come out pretty good in position on the other side, which is awesome. So yeah, that's the brief video. Sorry if it went on a bit, but hopefully this video will help you. And if you've got any questions, feel free to post them below. But yeah, again, I've added the link to this below the video. But yeah, don't be, if life was always perfect and in a straight line, it'd be boring. So think of things that are setbacks happening for you, not necessarily to you, because when something doesn't go as planned, then it's down to you to adjust, adapt, be resourceful, and a lot of the time it will make you even better, not just as a person, but possibly as a player and a coach as well, whatever you want to be. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one.